Hello World is a song that we sing.
Welcome to the Pop Culture Preservation Society, the podcast for people born in the big wheel generation who know the perfect technique for twirling themselves into a phone cord without getting tangled.
We believe our Gen X childhoods gave us unforgettable songs, stories, characters, and images. And if we don't talk about them, they'll disappear, like Marshall, Will, and Holly on a routine expedition.
And today, we're saving the Tuesday night TV show that centered around a close-knit group of angsty friends in Philadelphia who were all a decade or more older than us, but whose lives we related to anyway. We may have only been 20-something, but we couldn't get enough of 30-something.
I'm Carolyn.
I'm Kristen.
And I'm Michelle. And we are your pop culture preservationists. Do you remember the first time you felt like television was talking to you instead of at you? Well, for a lot of us, that moment came in late 1987 when a little show called 30-something slipped into our living rooms, or in my case, my dorm room. The show wasn't glamorous. It wasn't glossy. There were no shoulder pads the size of bread loaves, or cat fights by the pool, or scary situations in the ER. Instead, there was a group of 30-something-year-old friends who were just trying to figure out how to adult, worrying about babies and friendships and lovers and whether their marriages were even going to survive. And for many of us Gen Xers, it didn't matter that we were years away from being 30-something. Watching Michael and Hope, Nancy and Elliot, Melissa and Gary and Ellyn felt like watching older siblings just a few steps ahead of us, stumbling through the same messy and real questions we were starting to ask. And today we're finally pulling up a chair to that kitchen table in Michael and Hope's forever under construction kitchen with exposed drywall, grabbing a bottle of beer from their fridge without asking, and remembering why 30-something mattered so much to us and to much of our generation at a time when we were all just learning how to be grown-ups ourselves. So we'll do like a little thing.
Yeah, it's like a little pan
Yes,
flute.
I was thinking about that
At the
too.
farmer's market.
If you remember, 30-something aired on Tuesday nights on ABC from 1987 to 1991, and the three of us were huge, enormous fans, despite the fact that we were all a full decade plus younger than 30-something. I mean, I was only 18 when it began, yet we were obsessed, and this show impacted each of us tremendously in what I suspect are very different ways.
100%. So as the oldest of the three of us, I was actually 22 years old when 30-something first aired. And this show, you guys, it became my handbook for how to adult, how to adult. Truly, because I had graduated in May of that year, so May of 1987. So I've got my first real big girl job. I'm playing that whole yuppie stereotype. And thinking, I'd been dating Andy for a little over 2 years, so I knew that we'd be getting married one day. You know, that was just set in stone in my head. So 30-something was like my blueprint. This is who Andy and I were going to be. Andy was in advertising.
Oh, my God.
I know.
What?
I know.
That takes it to a whole different level.
Yes, it does. Whole different. And I, had lived in the East Coast, so I could kind of picture that whole Philadelphia scene and having a cute little fixer-upper house because Andy's really handy. So all of that just kind of fed into this narrative that I was just going to play out. I was just, like you said, a few steps behind, but I was going to follow their instructions step by step into this next big chapter of my life. And that's how that show went for me, its entirety.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
And I think it will differ quite a lot depending on how old you were, even by a year or two or three.
Yes.
Because if you were 18, it might mean something to you. If you were 15, it might not mean anything to you at all. So I'm really interested to hear what our listeners think about this and who it affected and who it didn't. Were you a teenager? Were you an almost adult? Were you a child? Because Gen X covers a lot of territory. So I'm very, very curious. It's hard for me to even talk coherently about what I've experienced in the last week rewatching these episodes. I think I've been more manalowed this week than at any other time in PCPS history. especially with 2 episodes in particular that I'll talk about in a little bit. But when I talk about the show now, I'm always so confused about why we were so into it. And truthfully, until the 3 of us started talking about it, I didn't even know if other people my age watched it, because
Right.
I knew it wasn't for us. I thought, I was very aware that these people were not my generation. And if you think about it, they were only 10 years younger than our parents. And right? I know, it's weird. And I remember recommending very enthusiastically because I loved it so much. So I was 19 years old in September of 1987 when I started watching it in my dorm room, like Michelle, surrounded by all of the women on my floor. Oh, yeah. And the next year, so season 2, I had a class on Tuesday nights with my friend Lynn. Yes, and it was from 6 until 8:55 p.m. We were taking Judaism with Rabbi Melamed. It was a 3-hour class. And we would sit there at 8:50. We were already had our jackets on. We had our bags on our shoulder. And we're just praying, literally praying for Rabbi Melamed to stop talking. And we're
Well, at
watching
least you were in the right
clock.
class to
Yes,
have your
exactly.
prayers answered, maybe.
And then we would, as soon as she let us go, we would run. And when I say run, I mean literally. We would run across campus to Iterbo Hall next door. We would go to the cafe in the basement called The Pause. We would order nachos on a paper plate. We would order 1 big cup of half Sprite, half water for my friend Lee. We would run up the stairs to my friend Lee's dorm room. And the goal was to get there before the music started.
Oh, you don't want to miss that theme song?
No, you can't miss the pan flute. You can't miss the
That
pan
and
flute.
the opening
And
credits
just the
are
opening with
incredible.
she's on top of Michael and the baby.
With the
and Jamie
baby
crawls
crawling
by.
by.
And she
We
It
has-
had-
evolves,
and
as the
Yes, and we would
seasons
just
go
be
on.
like sweating,
cry.
just sweating.
I'm sweating listening to you tell the story.
Yes, it was important. And then my senior year, we oftentimes watched the show Next Door, where the guys lived, including Mike, who would someday be my husband.
Yeah.
It was the equivalent of what you just talked about, Michelle, of grabbing a beer out of Hope and Michael's fridge without asking, which, by the way, was Michelob Dry. And we started drinking Michelob Dry because they were drinking Michelob Dry. We would just walk into their
Always a
house and
bottle.
turn on their TV. And now I know that we were trying to make them be our Michaels and our Elliots and our Garys because they weren't having it. They just walked around us totally uninterested, like we weren't even there. But we were trying to claim them as our Michaels and our Garys and our Elliots.
Right.
It was confusing for me because that I was so wrapped up in this show. Even at the time, it was confusing for me because I was very aware that I had no big dreams of getting married and having babies like Hope and Michael. That was not my fantasy. I was not that interested in grown-up things, of completing the picture-perfect grown-up life with the house and the picket fence and the 2.4 kids. And I was really quite scared to death of Hope's life. Being, she was married, no job, consumed by baby care. I mean, Hope was not that into it either, to be honest. I actively did not want that. So why was I hooked so hard? But now, after watching the show for a few nights, the secret has been revealed. I get it. I totally understand. Hope and Michael were the nucleus of this show, but they were surrounded by this group of friends who were, in my mind, their college friends. That's what I put upon them. I was projecting. And those were the people who circulated in their orbit. And this was a carbon copy of my current situation, where you've separated from your family of origin and now your friends are your family.
Yes.
And I was watching how this friend family could be brought with you into your future. And that was my fantasy. These people are going to be my family forever. It doesn't have to end here. And we all have different crises to be managed, just like we do now. Not now, I mean then. Just like we did then. It was mostly love, work, and sex. Love, work, and sex. Love, work, and sex. And there's no denying how important the role that sex played in drawing us into this show, because they talked very openly about sex, not in lewd ways or scandalous ways, except for
having
stupid
it, not
Elliot.
having it, basically.
Having it or not
craving
having it,
wanting it,
Yes.
not wanting it.
It's not
Realistic,
working.
Which,
yeah,
we'll get
very,
into.
very realistic. And they were talking about it in the way that Friends do. And it portrayed sex not as a fantasy romance, not soap opera sex, but in a very lighthearted way and a realistic way.
Yeah.
How it gets interrupted when the baby cries or when your mom knocks on the door. And the whole thing just validated our experience as new adults. Like, we belong here in this place and this sexual place, and it's not dirty or wrong. It's nice and it's complicated. And this was the real fantasy. It wasn't Donna Reed, husband, house, baby. It was being loved and supported and listened to by an adorable partner in very tender ways while maintaining a friend-focused life with the people you grew up with. It was like St. Elmo's Fire Part 2.
Yeah, it kind of was. That's a great analogy. I like that.
You guys, I want to weep right now. I feel like, we're in our 5th year. And I don't know if there's been a discussion in 240-something discussions that I have felt closer to the two of you.
I know.
Than us having this conversation about 30-something. It's like I want to say to you guys, I found my people. I know I found my people, like with you guys 7 years ago or whatever, 6 years ago. But like to know how much this meant to me and then to hear you guys reflecting it back to me, I want to reach through my screen and physically kiss each of you. I love you so much. And I love
It's like
also
30-something come to life. It's 30-something happening right now.
This is the most excited I feel like I've ever been for a conversation because we still have more to come and I don't even know how I'm going to handle it. But I just said earlier, you guys, that we were all obsessed with this in what I suspected were very different ways. But listening to the two of you right now, again, I feel so bubbly inside because it's not that different, even though I'm, a little bit younger than you, because obsessed is too small a word to describe my relationship with 30-something. I was consumed by this show, and Hope and Michael in particular. I was just starting college, like I said, in the fall of 1987, and I latched onto this show so hard, my roommate and I did together. People often say that the characters and the stories in 30-something are so relatable. That's what made it so successful. But for me, from age 18 to 22, think about it, they were not. But for emerging adult Michelle, 30-something was a fairy tale. A fucked up fairy tale for sure. But it was a depiction of young adult life that looked amazing to me in its normalcy, which is exactly how that relatability then played for me.
That's what you wanted.
Yeah, so cut to season 2, and little emerging adult Michelle has her first serious boyfriend. And to me, we looked more than a little bit like Hope and Michael. You guys, I would cut out every 30-something picture from magazines and pin to my bulletin board next to pictures of me and Brian. Because, spoiler alert, everyone, I married my Michael. Doesn't have hair anymore, but that's fine. Yeah. And I'm not wrong. We totally could have been the 19 and 20-year-old versions of Hope and Michael. I actually still have all the things that I had on my college bulletin board my junior year in a box. And I'm going to post in this week's Weekly Reader because I want to see what you guys think. If you could be like, oh, that could have been them at age 19 and 20. We'll see. But like I said, 30-something was the illusion of the life I wanted and aspired, even with all the constant messy parts. Fucked up fairy tale, like I said, right? I mean, what 19-year-old yearns for an old fixer-upper with leaky pipes and exposed drywall and an overworked husband and a crying baby instead of like a cool loft in Soho where you get to get dressed up in fancy clothes and go out to the bars every weekend looking for guys, right? I did. Me, Michelle. Yeah. I did. Yep. And I got that it was a depiction of real life. And really, that's all I wanted. I wanted to project myself into their life in Philadelphia. I wanted the eclectic group of friends who came in and out at random. I wanted the adorable baby. I even wanted the struggles. I don't know. I guess I didn't dream big, but I just wanted to argue with my hot husband over, playing squash with his friend when he said he'd be home for dinner. So yeah, living that life was my fairy tale.
And it makes so much sense, Michelle, because you wanted something normal and predictable and reliable and constant. Something that you had to navigate so much when you were a kid, and you're like, I don't want to navigate anymore.
You know what? That's a really good point. I lived a really chaotic and unpredictable childhood, certainly until I was in college. And so, it's I used to say to my therapist, it's no, like, I get how funny it is, that Michelle's first serious boyfriend, she married him. You know, like I just want, like I was like, okay, yes, this is gonna work. This is gonna be it then for the rest of it. But yeah, that's what 30-something represented to me, even though it was messy.
But messy
you know,
in a very,
you can even
in
look
a very
at like
normal way.
Yes,
and you can look
it's
at even the
very normal.
messiness of like Nancy and Elliot. But
Yeah.
you know what? Even that they were working through. For sometimes,
Yes.
sometimes they
Yeah.
weren't. You know, season 1
Yeah.
not as much. But they were working. They were like gonna they
Right.
were gonna try to keep providing that constant, you
Yeah.
know, that stability. Yeah. So So I've decided though, after rewatching, we two have been rewatching. Brian and also by season 2, Brian watched all these with me because believe me, that's what I was watching on Tuesday night, and I was usually at like his frat house room or whatever. So I was like 30-something's on. I've decided I'm going to get him some suspenders for Christmas this year.
Oh, I
You
know.
are.
Maybe
Those
a pair of
suspenders.
pleated pants, real pleated.
Yes.
Let's just bring
Michael
back
wore
that whole
some
thing.
pleated pants.
He
y'all.
did.
They got bigger as time went on.
They
Yeah,
did, like
bigger
where
and
there's like
baggier.
almost puffiness kind of down in that pleated
that was-
part or whatever.
Yes, but
very
so,
90s.
and then they're also thin and little. Do you guys though? Are you? But so pleated and puffy, and then all of Hope and like Ellyn's and Melissa especially, they're the giant.
Everything was
clothes.
giant.
Everything
Everything
was
was
just
giant.
covering their cute little bodies.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, and you know, Mike always says that the late 80s were really hard for boys who wanted to see girls because we were always wearing these giant sweatshirts.
Yes,
and they're like, I don't
that's
know what's
right.
under there. I have no idea.
Well, and you add the shoulder pad, which, you know, like when we
Yes.
talk about our shoulder pads, we always all laugh, listeners, because we always think of the Carol Burnett sketch with the, you know, the curtain rod. But you really couldn't see anything because our shoulders went out about 8 inches longer than our actual shoulders. So that the shirts just hung.
Right.
straight.
I remember when Maggie and Grace were like in high school and they'd want to get a sweatshirt and I'd be like, okay, large or extra large? And Grace would be like, I think it's between small and medium I should get. I'm like, nobody gets a small or medium sweatshirt. Like they shouldn't even offer that as an option.
They went all the way past your butt. Your
Oh my
sweatshirt
gosh.
was there with the
It was-
band
it
of
was
the
like a little
sweatshirt
dress.
would go around your thighs.
Yes. And
I'm
then we
kind
have
of
our
loving
stirrup
that that's
pants.
back.
Yes, with your stirrup pants.
I'm kind of loving that the big baggy sweatshirts that kind of go over your wrists and stuff are back. Like now
Well,
I
is it-
always get size large of everything.
Is it any
well,
wonder?
that also has to do with my body getting larger.
And I'm
But-
saying our generation, we're kind of bringing that back. We loved it then, and we love it now. It kind of it's comfy. It leaves
Yeah.
stuff to the imagination.
You know what? Also, I got reminded of some of the smallest details that you forget about an era that don't seem important, but you're like, hey, yeah, why don't we do that anymore? In this show, women are always sleeping in a t-shirt. Just a
Yeah.
t-shirt. I always slept in just a t-shirt. When did I start wearing pajamas?
exactly.
I don't know, but I've gone back to the t-shirt because Andy's are nice and 100% cotton, and they are kind of big on me. I mean, they're not the cute ones that would come down to my knees, and I thought I was all that, like sleeping over in his dorm
Yeah.
room or whatever. But they're really comfortable, and they're white, and they kind of absorb some stuff, and yeah.
Well,
so anyway,
I have to
I'm
get
back to that.
pajamas. I have to get the cool, like
Oh, yeah,
cool
those
nights
right.
pajamas from like Soma. I have like 8 pairs of those because they have to like wick my sweat away.
Yes.
Well, okay, we digress. Well, so this show was so character driven, and the storylines were so engrossing, but that's totally because of the strong characters. Michael and Hope, the newlyweds with a new baby, Elliot and Nancy with the 2 small kids and a rocky marriage. Y'all watching these back, have you just been watching little Ethan and going, oh man, that kid just pissed me off half the time?
He was such a
Ethan
shit.
was just a
Such
little
shit.
shit half the time.
From the get-go, from the
Oh,
pilot
well, from
episode.
let's just say, I mean, I think in like
Yes.
like the first first 6 or 8 episodes, he can be still he's just going with his plane. He's just always running that plane around
In
But
everyone's
you start
face.
getting into other episodes, and you're right, he's a little shit. And
Yep.
it was like I saw that kid's face yesterday when it came back up on. I was like, there's that Ethan.
And
There he
remember,
is.
if you had good friends that had a kid who was a little shit and you just didn't quite know how to handle like the friendship because you want to go, I don't want to go over there. That kid is out of control or whatever. But
Well, and Nancy and Elliot were actually good teachers for me because even though I was not planning on having kids, I knew that I would someday. And I'm like, That's what I'm not doing.
Right, exactly.
I am
Exactly.
not going with the Nancy and Elliot plan.
Yes,
this
right.
is. I'm like taking
Yeah.
notes. This is
Yeah,
not because it's good
exactly.
to know what your parenting style is. I'm like, I'm learning
Yeah.
about my parenting style, not it.
Right.
Yeah. We were watching the other night and Brittany was in like under the table or something. And Brian's like, wait, who's she? And I was like, that's Brittany. It was like I said it just like Nancy would. That's Brittany. Yeah. Don't you remember little Brittany? She was cute. Well, then we have Melissa, who was Michael's single cousin, who is an up and coming photographer with a lot of personality and a lot of style, let's say, and a lot of issues, who used to date Gary, Michael's best friend from college, who is a single professor for a hot second, that we all, at least I did, swooned over. I thought Gary was super attractive, even though Michael was my future husband. And then we have Ellyn. Quirky Ellyn, Hope's lifelong bestie, who is still a single career woman and often feels like the seventh wheel.
Oh.
Except for towards the middle to end of season 1, I love when her and Melissa figure out that they are like, hey, we can be friends. Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
then they start hanging out, and it's just so, I just love their friendship. I think they're funny together.
It's very offbeat and it's very entertaining. And you're so happy.
Yeah,
for them.
because they're so different. They're so different. Well, I loved the whole friendship group so much. I loved I loved the dysfunction. Oh God, why can't I speak? I loved the dysfunction and the arguments and the goofiness and the smart alecky comments and just the huge amount of love they so obviously had for each other. I mean, they could get into some bad arguments, like really bad, where they were yelling at each other, but they made up. And God, this is all making sense now, Kristen. Thank you.
Yes.
How much do I owe you for this therapy today?
Making
Because
sense
I'm like,
to me too.
wait a minute.
Yes. You can argue and come out on the other side and still be friend. Yeah, exactly.
And
And
it's
you
good
can,
for
like,
your
express your
relationship to do
feelings.
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I loved them all for different reasons. Like when the guys were all together, Kristen, this is like what you were saying. They cracked me up with their college level shenanigans still in their 30 something, and
That
their
was
really
sexy.
stupid humor. Yeah, because it was so real, and it was very much what I was living in at that time.
At that moment.
with Brian
Right,
and
yes.
his friends were Michael and Gary and Elliot. And then I also loved it when it would just be the girls hanging out, because they're usually talking about the stupid things the guys were doing, which was also very real. That's exactly what I was going through. And then when they're all together and they're typically in Michael and Hope's ramshackle fixer-upper, walking in the door without knocking, grabbing beers out of the fridge without asking. And despite this being such an ensemble, each character also had such tremendous individual character, if you will, and personality and struggles and triumphs, right?
Yeah. And it's sort of like Sex in the City, where everybody like, are you a Miranda?
Yeah.
Are you a
I
Carrie?
thought of it too, yeah.
Yeah, everybody chooses who they're going to be, and I think still a lot of the populace is veering toward Hope and Michael. Like they are the nucleus. They are the nucleus.
They are the nucleus, but I do think that, what's super cool about the way this show was written, and I think we'll get into that in just a little bit, but they gave, like I said, it was an ensemble, and Hope and Michael, sure, they're the nucleus, but they gave each of these characters such struggles and personality and storylines. If you go through just on like Wikipedia and just read the synopsis of every episode of every season, it's almost equally divided between these 7 characters.
And I think it feels like veering toward Hope and Michael because so much of the talking took place in their home.
Right.
Well, they're mom and dad, basically.
Yeah, they were the mom and dad of the friend
mature
group. That's true.
Yeah, exactly. And people could identify with a character in there. So, of course, like I said, I was identifying with Michael and Hope because that was my, dream. But if you're the single friend or you're Kristen, you might identify with, Ellyn. Or I think everybody could find themselves in one of the characters, no matter where you were in your stage of life. And then all of those things you said, Michelle, the trials, the tribulations, the highs, the lows, you could relate to all, to those as well. So
and everybody so you could identify who you quote unquote were, but you could also identify who you aspired to be.
True.
That might be different.
Yes.
You may not actually be much like Hope, but you really want your future to look like Hope's, and so you're going to pin your hopes on Hope. But the thing about Hope is that for the first time, somebody was telling the truth about motherhood. Hope was telling the truth about motherhood. This was not Donna Reed. She was not glorifying the husband and the house and the baby. She was showing how she was having difficulty with it and something had been taken away from it and all of the frustrations that came with it. And then Ellyn offered the alternative to Hope. She's the childhood friend who works at City Hall, and she's got the big shoulder pads, and she has, she's got relationships here and there, but she overtly says, I'm not really thinking about having children. I don't want that. She's the counterpoint. And then, like I said, Nancy and Elliot helped me identify my parenting style, which was not that. And then
It was like they had two kids. Sorry, but didn't it always seem like they had about 15? When you were like in a scene in their living room,
It was
I was
so
like,
chaotic.
where the kids are just running back and forth and under the table and over the and like I said, Ethan's always got that damn like airplane that he's like over
God.
people's heads and dunking it in their coffee and then like climbing over them on their laps, and you're just like, somebody discipline this child.
And their parenting style was shrieking. That was their parenting style. I'm like, I'm not going to be a shrieker.
Yeah.
I mean, we could get into a whole discussion about this, about how they were unhappy with each other in their marriage and all this kind of stuff. But it all makes sense now as adults, right?
Yeah.
And now we've all been parents ourselves. So now we are like, have some boundaries, Nancy and Elliot. because we've been parents, right?
Yes. Well, and Melissa was so important in that group because she was the personality. Everybody had a Melissa in their friend group. She was the one with the Doc Martens. And she would have, right? Everybody had one Doc Martin person in their friend group.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And
Ours was Wendy.
Everybody
Sorry, I
has
just
one.
thought of Wendy. Yeah.
And there's one scene from one episode that was so immaterial and had nothing to do with nothing. And I've been thinking about it for 35 years because it was so funny and it was so Melissa. Melissa is at a big party, and for some reason she's stuck in a room with all the children watching TV. You know how they're like, throw all the kids in a room and turn on a movie?
Yeah.
And for some reason Melissa's stuck with all the kids, and they're watching the Danny Kaye movie, Hans Christian Andersen. And little Britty keeps going, Hans Christian Amberson, Hans Christian Amberson. And she's saying Amberson instead of Anderson. And Melissa just looks at her with such disdain, and she's like, it's Anderson. Like, she's arguing with
God, I
this
can
small
picture
child.
her perfectly. That might have been season 1, the Thanksgiving episode, I feel like,
I think
but I'm
it
not
was.
sure.
I think
That's
it
a great
was.
episode. But Melissa, didn't you guys feel like, I want to ask you in just a second, so be thinking, I want to ask you if you had a favorite character, but didn't you guys also feel like with the love we all had of this show, you might have had a favorite character, but you either aspired to be certain parts of I don't want to say names because I want to give mine away. Shocking. But like, you aspired to have, the fashion sense of this one, or
that's a good point.
a personality trait of this one. Like, I can't say in this whole ensemble there was one that I disliked, but you liked little bits and pieces of them. You almost wanted
That's
to
true.
build the perfect person with little bits and pieces of each of them. I did at least.
Usually in a TV show, they will set up set up an ensemble cast to have one person who's supposed to be either the villain or the anti-hero or the contrast. And yes, there's lots of contrast. Like I said, Ellyn is the contrast to Hope, but you're not meant to dislike any of them.
No.
Every single one of them is
I don't
somebody
think so.
that you felt something for.
Yeah. Except for Miles.
Except for Miles Drentel.
Miles, yeah.
Can I
Yes,
tell
Miles
you
Drentel.
how Husker Dude I got when I heard the name Miles Drentel? Miles Drentel is the evil owner of the advertising agency that Michael and Elliot work for, and he was vile. Miles Drentel.
Yeah, he was.
Yes.
He was like he was absolutely the villain of.
He was
Disney
the only
in it.
villain. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Besides Hope's
But if-
parents, bless their hearts.
Well, you
Parents-
know what? I could
a
talk.
lot of parents
I could
could
talk
be.
a lot about
That's
those
yeah.
the parent episodes, but I can't. We don't have that kind of time.
No.
Okay,
But
so
just-
let's
but
talk
just to, like,
favorites.
point at-
Did you have a favorite?
Let's see. Go ahead, Caroline. I was gonna go ahead.
I guess I would say Hope, but it's in terms of that's the, like, person, like not specifically Hope herself, because honestly, sometimes I thought she kind of whined a little bit. But her life, I wanted her life. So in terms of aspiration, that was it. But early on, I would say I probably also aspired to Ellyn's life, because I wasn't like right out of the gate thinking about having kids. So there was the aspiration of Hope, but more reality was probably being successful in my shoulder pads and, whatever. What were never mind. But my shoulder pads and my pantyhose and.
Yes, the cute chic kind of, short hair. She had the. She was a businesswoman, right?
Yeah, she had
the ultimate
hair.
kind of yuppie at that point, the young urban professional. That's what I was aiming for. Okay. So, in answer to that question, it was more their what those characters were doing, not necessarily the people themselves, if that makes any sense.
And that's kind of like Michelle I just said. Saying. You liked, you liked a combination. Yes. You wanted a little bit of Hope and a little bit of Ellyn. I love that. Yeah.
I was so very attached to Ellyn. Maybe because, like I said, she was intended to play off of Hope, who I know, big shocker. This is going to shock nobody. And none of the things that we're saying are shocking any of our listeners. So I was actively trying not to be Hope. And Ellyn's personality was like somebody, but I loved Hope. I have nothing against, I really, like if
I just love how you're actively trying.
Yes. Yeah, but I love how you just said, trying to not be her, but you loved her, because look at Hope and Ellyn. I love how in episode 1 they address right out of the gate. Yeah, they're not just college friends; they've been childhood friends. So these two have been friends forever, and all of a sudden, and both career women, right? Yep. Both out of college career women. One gets married and has a baby. One doesn't. How do you now still be that good of friends when your lives are so wildly different? And you end up ultimately seeing that you still have this love of who you are inside for each other. And that's kind of what you just said. You didn't want to be Hope, but you loved Hope.
I don't want her life, but I want to be friends with her. And there's a great scene in the pilot episode where Ellyn and Hope are getting together for lunch, and of course Hope has to come in with the stroller and the baby, and it's a very nice restaurant, and Ellen's trying to engage her in conversation, but the baby always needs something, and then the baby starts to cry, and Hope is just panicking, and she's trying to keep engaging with Ellyn, but she's also unbuttoning her shirt and trying to get a boob out so she can make this child shut up. And then eventually Ellen's like, you know what? You don't have to stay. You can go. And she's like, no, I want to stay. I want to stay. And Ellen's like, please go. This is torture. And so eventually she does pack up the baby and go. And they had to get through that moment. They had to talk about it. Like, what does this actually mean? But Ellen's personality was like somebody I would have wanted to hang out with. She was funny without trying to be funny. She still really wants to have a good time. She's a little scared of Hope's life too, kind of like I was. And it's no accident that the 2 episodes that Manalowed me the hardest were centered around my 2 favorite characters. And that's when Ellyn gets married, and I'm going to go there, when Gary dies. We spend 4 years watching Ellyn stumble and fall with her career trajectory and her love life, and she's on the brink of giving up when she falls for a truly good person. Everyone's like, she's gonna do it. But even then, her fear of abandonment might make her walk away from this beautiful situation. And so when she finally walks down that aisle, surrounded by all of her friends, on the arm of Michael because her dumb deadbeat dad didn't show up, in a musical montage no less, to Ray Charles's Come Rain or Come Shine, I am crying. I am crying like it's 1991. And I remember sitting on the couch and crying next to my roommate, Martha. And we're both crying at Ray Charles and Ellyn and Michael in the musical montage. I was like in a different place. And I came to love this song, this Ray Charles song, Come Rain or Come Shine. I had never heard this song before. And now, to this day, it's still one of my favorite songs that will make me cry. But I have one question. How did I find out what this song was with no internet?
I have no idea. And I don't know how I got from point A to point B until I knew how to Google, had Google Maps or whatever.
Did I call the reference librarian and say there was a song at the end of 30-something, but you can't see it because we can't stream it? So it's a mystery to be solved. I don't know how I found out what this song was. But then how do I even talk about the episode where Gary dies?
I don't think we can.
This was a water cooler moment for the ages. It was like Who Shot JR in reverse.
Oh,
because the answer is revealed to us first, like boom, like shot right between the eyes. And the surprise factor was magnified because of how beloved Gary was. They killed the golden retriever, is what happened. Gary
and
was our
let's not-
golden retriever.
Let's not forget, for how many episodes leading up to Gary's death had we all been thinking Nancy's going to die? Nancy's going to die
of ovarian
And all of a
cancer.
sudden, in the
Yes.
episode where we find out that Nancy's not going to die, you guys, I was so gutted. I was so in disbelief. I was so pissed off.
Yes.
I cried so hard. I couldn't sleep at night. I couldn't. My roommate, Chris, and I were. I just remember we were astounded. We were speechless. We were mad.
So
I
shocked.
thought. I remember watching the next, thinking it's not going to have been real. It's
Yeah,
by
you thought it was
then-
going to be
Yeah.
a Bobby dream, a Bobby Ewing
Yeah.
dream.
But you guys, we all. He wasn't just Gary to all of us who loved this show so much. He was actually.
Yeah.
He wasn't Peter Horton playing Gary. He was Gary.
He was
Gary.
our
Right.
Gary. He was our golden
And
retriever
the fact
puppy.
that he was biking
Yeah.
to the hospital to give Nancy a book.
No, it's worse.
Wasn't he?
It's worse.
Yeah,
because
he was biking to give her through the looking glass.
No,
wasn't he?
he's driving because Michael says, "Oh, this is going to break my heart." Okay, I'm going to set the whole thing up so we can get to the biking versus driving thing because they're all at the hospital celebrating Nancy's surgery where she's now in remission. Everybody come to the hospital celebrating she's not going to die. And everyone's like, "Where's Gary? Where's Gary?" So Michael goes out in the hallway on the payphone to call Gary. Doesn't answer. "I'm going to call the machine at home." So he puts another quarter in the payphone, calls the machine at home. There's a message from a police officer saying, "There's been an accident. Please call the police." And so he writes the number down on his hand, puts another quarter in the payphone, calls the police. That's where the world falls apart. Gary has been killed in an accident. And what happened was when earlier in the day, when Michael and Gary are discussing going to going to visit Nancy in the hospital, Michael's like, "Gary, do not ride that bike in the snow.
Oh,
the
that's
weather,
right.
the
That's
weather, it's so
right.
bad there. Do not ride that bike." And Gary
right.
rides away on his bike and he's waving. So then when he
That's
gets
why
to
I'm
the
thinking of
morgue,
it. I can picture
Yes.
that. That's why
He's
I'm
biking
imagining.
away. So poor Michael has to go to the morgue to identify his friend's body. And he says, "I told him not to ride the bike. I told him not to ride the bike." And the doctor says, "Oh, he wasn't riding his bike. He drove. And he was behind a tractor-trailer truck that locked up on the icy bridge. It was an 8-car pileup." And Michael's face just goes and drops to the floor.
No, I was just going to say, I want to bring the point about when you were saying you were watching it, Michelle, and you were just dumbstruck and you were with your roommate and just how could they do this? And I think about now, like, first of all, either you watched it that night or you didn't. It's like, it's not like you could watch it the next day. So there really wasn't such a thing as spoilers back then. And there wasn't the way to like connect with other watchers or whatever. So there wasn't like any theories. I mean, maybe like it's going to be Nancy. If someone's going to die, it's going to be Nancy.
It was
and that
going to
was
be
maybe
Nancy, for
It
sure.
was gonna be
Yeah.
Nancy.
so that
Yes.
the shock factor back then, I don't know that you could replicate it now unless it was something real that happened in life,
right.
because somehow you would either get somebody leak something or there's something, something ahead of time, or certainly if you couldn't watch it that night for whatever reason, you're like, okay, I'm going to watch it tomorrow. You would have accidentally seen a spoiler, or you would have had to have actively
It's out
avoided
there. Yeah, people are
spoilers.
talking about
So-
it. And even if you don't get the actual information, there are enough nuggets that you know something is coming.
Right.
And this is such good TV because it wasn't just us who was surprised.
Right.
So they told Gary, of course, because Gary's the one playing the role, but they did not tell the cast.
Right.
And so the cast is doing the same thing that we are. They're like thinking that Nancy's going to die. And they don't know until they sit down at the table read and they're literally reading the words out loud that they learn that Gary has died. And they said that moment where it starts to come out at the table read, they're going through the same thing we are when we watch it on TV. It's much like if you remember Radar coming into the OR. You heard about this on our MASH episode. Radar coming into the OR to share that Colonel Blake had been shot down over the Sea of Japan. they didn't tell the cast that Radar was going to come into the room and say that. And so the writers wanted to tap into that emotion of the actors. And they love Gary just like we do.
Yeah.
For the three of us, and for, I guess there's other people out there that liked the show as much as we did. Maybe, but no. But for all of you listening, I think, the show was only on for 4 years. It was so impactful to us. But I don't know that you can talk to anybody who loved this show without Gary coming up, without that coming up with Gary.
Yes,
because you can't not. And it's not that it overshadows all the other episodes, because there were so many other great things.
And that's what they did so well, and particularly in that episode, is the both and. Like, in one, you can be so happy and ecstatic that Nancy is okay and you're riding this high, and then in the same exact moment, you're riding the lowest of lows.
Yeah.
And that's kind of life. I feel like that's another thing the show did so well, was show us that it's not always, whatever. It's not always roses and champagne, and it's also not always the bottom of the dregs or whatever. But it can be both, and they can be right on top of each other.
Totally on top of each other.
That roller coaster, and how do you reconcile that? That's just
interestingly, the Eswick and Marshall Herskovitz, who created 30-something, and much of the storylines were based on their own life. They had this like 2-year period in both of their lives where what you just said, Carolyn, the both and. I mean, their wives were having children, they were winning an Emmy, and then the very next day, one of them's father gets, has brain cancer, gets diagnosed with brain cancer, and then they go and they're winning another award, or something wonderful else is happening. So it was like I feel like it's like a year or 2-year period where when 30-something started, that they had the highest of highs and the lowest of lows in a very condensed period. So now hearing you say that, I bet that's where this all came in. Like, we have to figure this out somehow, how we can illustrate this. But in my mind, I'm like, really? Also, don't you guys remember how happy we all were for Gary when Susanna, they had a baby, and
he was a stay-at-home
they went
dad.
through, they went through struggles
so
too,
sexy.
him and Susanna.
Yes.
But well, I just have to pop in real quick and tell you who my favorite was, because I'm sure you guys were on the edge of your seat.
Who could it be? Who could it be?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's probably a little obvious after just telling you that I basically modeled myself after her and aspired to be her and have her life. But yes, that was Hope Murdoch Stedman. And it's hard for me to separate her from Michael because, again, like I just said, I saw me and Brian as them. That's not creepy at all, though, right? And besides her great hair, oh my God, nobody could rock a ponytail. The ponytail was always perfect. Yeah. And her really cute baggy late 80s clothes. I just felt like Hope was really real. And yeah, she gets criticized for maybe being a little whiny or whatever, but so did
I'm not having it.
So did I. I mean,
she had a freaking baby. She has a lot to whine about. Yeah.
But she had feelings. Yeah. She spoke up, though. She loved her friends. She was wrong a lot, and maybe we could see that as we're watching it. But I also felt like Hope was often the steady boat in rocky seas. Like, I felt like they all, like I said, they were mom and dad. They didn't want, anytime Hope and Michael were arguing and the other friends knew it, they were like the kids, like, no, what's going on here? No, mom and dad don't fight. Like, right? And I related to being that steady boat in rocky seas a lot. And I also loved that everyone loved Hope. Like, I loved that that they knew they could count on her and rely on her.
She was their anchor. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had a whole bunch of, Melissa had a whole bunch of qualities that I just thought were so fun and funny too. So I also always loved Melissa, but Hope was my
And yet they're totally flawed, like you said, which makes them all the more relatable. And one of the episodes that makes me love Hope all the more was when her mother comes to visit, and Hope can't not be a bitch to her mom. And you're set up to think that Hope's mom is a bitch, but then you watch them together and you're like, Hope, I think it's you, honey. And even Michael is like, Hope, can you just back off a little bit? Like, let the woman breathe. And then you realize that Hope needs to go to therapy. and by the end of the episode, Hope was like, yeah, I get it. I need to back off a little bit.
And that episode spoke So sorry, go ahead.
No, I just want to say, because I feel like I have to defend my comment from before, because I said that Hope was a little whiny. And I will say, when I was watching that show when I was in my 20s, I didn't want to be whiny. Like, that was realistic. And so to your point, like, yes, she was playing that role so well, and that's real life. But I was not going to be the whiner. I was going to be, glass half full. We've got this. So when I said those qualities were not some that I wanted to, those were ones I didn't want to have that Hope had. But
See,
those were real.
It all comes back to us. It all comes
it
back
really
to
does,
ourselves,
doesn't it?
It's so
and our
interesting.
personalities. Yes, exactly.
Oh yeah, because that episode with Hope's parents, which is very early in season 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember so vividly at age 18 projecting myself and seeing that's how I will be with my mother. And when we were just watching it a couple weeks ago, Brian looked over at me halfway through and he's like, yeah, I don't see you as Hope at all. Ha, like, ha, ha, ha. Like, you were that was 100% you with your mother.
Wow.
But see, I see it from Hope's point of view too. And I can be like, instead of, because Brian kept going, don't you see how she's like kind of being bratty and bitchy? And I was going, no, her mother, look what, and I'm defending Hope. But also because it was so interesting seeing Hope, not as the mother or the wife, how we had seen her for the, the first few episodes, but seeing her as the daughter. And then you got a glimpse back into her childhood, which, played into a lot, how she was then responding to her mother all of a sudden being like, I'm the perfect mother now.
It's so personal. And I think it's worth mentioning, too, that I absolutely 100% ended up with Hope's life. I mean, including her frustrations. I mean, carbon copy her frustrations. Everything that Hope struggled with, I struggled with. And I'm like, how did I get here? And I got there the same way that Hope did. Because it's kind of a trap a little bit. And I don't need to go into that too deeply, but it is,
Well, for our generation especially. I mean, you're sold 2 bill of goods and they didn't always jive.
Mesh. Yes,
which was the very end of that first of the pilot episode when Hope and Ellyn are at the park and they admit each of them are a little jealous about you have something that I want, when they each thought that the other thought that they didn't want any,
that they
had nothing in
each
common.
other.
And they're rejecting the lifestyles that they had both chosen, when in reality they both wanted a little something that the other had.
Hope wanted her freedom and Ellyn wanted her domesticity. And
we wanted both. I mean, let's just say back then, or, as we got our jobs and got married and had kids, you kind of wanted both, because you had been told both were great, but both didn't work together at the same time.
How
really.
can you do both?
But they do a great job. I mean, I was surprised looking back on it that it was as early as it was in season 1 that Hope goes back to work. I thought it was in like season 2 or 3.
I did too.
But then they do a really good job of showing that struggle and the guilt she
Yes.
feels of not being with Janie, and then
You
she wants
can't
to have
win.
another baby, and I know.
Okay. So if you didn't already gather, this was must-see TV for me. Every Tuesday night, without fail. I might as well have had a notebook by my side with a pencil taking notes on this is how I'm going to live my life. I wanted their house, like I said, their friend group. And then I realized, preparing for today's episode, that there was something also about 30-something that is memorable to me, but it doesn't have to do with a specific episode. As a matter of fact, it has to do with an episode that didn't air.
Oh,
so stay with me here, okay? So as I just said, must-see TV. I get ready Tuesday nights to sit down to watch it, and I turn on the TV only to realize that week's episode was being preempted by the World Series. And so we had one of those, tonight's episode of 30-something will not be seen, so we can bring you Game 7 of the World Series. 30-something will come back next week.
That was a really good impression.
Oh, thank you. And so
That would piss me off so
the
bad.
World Series is on in the background, and I'm newly married, okay? So this is October 17th, 1989. I got married in August.
Okay.
So I think I'm probably doing something kind of domesticated when I thought I needed to learn how to be a housewife. I'm probably like ripping out recipes from my Southern living, or I don't know, learning how to cross stitch, baking bread, who knows. When all of a sudden, like, the voices of the announcers on the baseball game got kind of weird. And then I looked at the TV and the screen was swaying. And this was the night of the San Francisco earthquake.
Oh my
If
God.
you remember. And so it was
Oh
like
my
in
God.
real time, whoever was watching the World Series kind of got to see it in real time because it was at Candlestick Park in San
Yes.
Francisco. And so the announcers are saying stuff and the camera you can see is starting to go. And then all of a sudden in real time,
Ooh.
this is the World Series and this is the earthquake. And I am like right there for it, only because I had really tuned in for 30-something, but it wasn't on. Weird coincidence is Timothy Busfield was in the stadium that night watching that game. Isn't that crazy?
That is
that's
bizarre.
always in my head. Those always sit together in my
Yeah,
head
right.
because
Yeah.
I was so excited to watch it, bummed it was the baseball game, kept the baseball game on, but it was only in the background. And then to watch this whole thing unfold, because that was really the only kind of on the spot coverage. It wasn't like, oh, we know an earthquake's coming like you do
Yeah.
with a hurricane and you're standing on the shore. This is just out of the blue. And it just happened to be something on TV live at that moment in that place.
And
that
I'm
it was
certain
happening.
I didn't see that, so I'm certain I turned the TV off and walked away.
Yeah, you probably did. Like,
And I didn't
Oh, yeah,
learn about
same.
it until
Yeah.
the next day or whatever.
right.
Oh, yeah,
No,
if they
and
would
then-
have said 30-something will not be seen tonight, so we can
You were
bring
already
you this game of the World
changing the
Series, I
channel.
would have been like, fuck, and just like walked away and
And it
turned
was
it off.
crazy that I kept it on. And then, of course, my aunt lives in California. So I'm immediately, or in San Francisco, and I'm immediately calling my mom. And we're trying to get a hold of my aunt, but you can't, none of the phone things are working. So we were kind of, in a way, up all night after that. But if you were not somebody that watched the news, we don't have social media and all that stuff like we do now. You probably did not find out till the next day
I did
when,
not.
you
I
know, all the
didn't.
tragedy. I mean, it's still going
And
on.
we didn't. I was not the type to watch the 10 o'clock news at that
Right.
age. At age 21, I was not watching
Right.
the 10 o'clock news.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
Isn't that crazy? So that will
Yeah.
always sit side by side in my
With
head.
30-something.
Yeah.
Unlike the nighttime soaps of the 1980s, I think it's very clear that we could insert ourselves into the lives of these characters instead
Yeah.
of just being observers into the lives of like oil tycoons and
Right.
winery matriarchs and things like that. The problems may not have been about mergers and takeovers and love triangles, but that does not mean that the problems were small or uninteresting. The inverse is actually true. We were spellbound by them because they could actually happen to us.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about, like, I mean, we've been talking a lot about Nancy's ovarian cancer scare,
Yeah.
but just the whole way it started, where I just remember that first episode, and she was like at the doctor, and she was like, I've just got this little pain. You know, Edswick and Marshall Herskovitz are taking just these normal, really real life things, or it could be Michael and Elliot, you know, when they worked at the Michael and Elliot company, and they're arguing over, you know, Michael's feeling like Elliot's liked more by one of their clients than he is, or whatever. So yeah, they're not having to take these Dynasty Dallas level type issues and problems that are so unrelatable to all of us. They're taking someone going to the doctor with a pain, and now all of a sudden it turns into cancer. They're taking a work relationship where there's a little bit of jealousy involved.
Yeah.
They're taking, they're taking Michael and Hope getting into a fight because, my God, when is there going to not be drywall exposed in my
Right.
kitchen? You know, or the leaky
Or are we doing
pipes,
Christmas
the
or
whatever.
Hanukkah? Like, which
Exactly.
one are we doing? Mhm.
And so they weren't these otherworldly, like, they weren't like these big problems. They were real problems that were big. They were
Yeah.
real big
exactly.
problems. And so that's why I feel like they were way more important than
us, yeah.
you know, the problems that the Carringtons or the Ewings or you
Right.
know were.
Well,
were
and you
facing.
said, Michelle, just a few minutes ago, that these were problems that Edswick and Marshall Herskovitz were experiencing themselves, or their friends were, or some of the other writers were. Like, these were real life experiences that sometimes they're bringing in stuff that had happened, like, in their lives. There's how do I want to say this? They often would bring like a fight that they had the week before with one of their wives, and that would make its way into the script. And interestingly enough, Edswick has a wonderful memoir out called Hits, Flops, and Other Illusions that I've listened to on Audible because I love memoirs being read by the person that it's about, their memoir. And he tells those stories about these exact moments that they are basically replicating the week after, 2 weeks after. And interestingly enough, both Marshall and Ed's wives worked on the show as well, whether as writers or I think maybe director kind of pieces here
I
and
think
there.
they were like story editors or something. For
Okay,
some of
yes.
them.
So
They,
they
would
would
each take over like one of them would be in charge of writing or editing Nancy and Elliot. One of them was in charge of someone else's storyline. They had different writers, and their wives weirdly were in charge because the total difference of Hope and Michael and Elliot and Nancy. And I think those two marriages kind of reflect Marshall's marriage and Ed's marriage. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's how real life it was. And when you listen to this, to him talk through this whole experience of 30-something, it is so reflective of exactly what's happening in their lives, or even in the cast members' lives. Like they would share because they were so close and so friendly. And so you'd maybe come in and talk about, Mel Harris might come in and talk about her divorce. I think it was her third divorce she was going through while the show was on. And she might come in and, talk about something that had happened. And like they said, a few weeks later, you read something similar in one of the scripts. So that's why it was real.
Be careful what you would walk in and share, probably, right?
Yes, well, that's what he says in the book, that eventually people started to be a little bit more close-mouthed or close-lipped on their lives because they saw it weaving itself into the storylines. But getting back to what we were saying, because it's real life, and we are not having to imagine, living on a big ranch in Dallas. It could be our friends or us or the people across the street.
And so we're paying attention.
And this was the first time, as Ed even talks about in his memoir, the first time there was ever really a show like this where it wasn't some aspirational family that seemed perfect. It was real life and very character driven. This stuff could really happen to real people anytime.
Yeah, like the anti-Donna Reed.
Exactly. And so anyway, how do I say this? While listening to that memoir, I was struck by how much Ed Zwick has influenced, particularly my life when it comes to entertainment, TV or movies. And I just want to share a quick list of some of the programming and entertainment he was responsible for, because I could track my Gen X life a little bit through chronologically through his career. So when we're talking TV, we're talking Family. That was his first show. We're talking Christy McNichol Family, 1976 to 1980. He came in and directed and wrote episodes for that. He's only in his 20s when this is happening.
How old
it was like
he?
right out of the gate.
Oh my!
It was right out of the gate, and he on Carolyn's advice, Brian and I started listening to Ed Zwick's memoir. It's highly recommend it, you guys. It's so great. We're only a couple hours into it, but yes, right out of the gate. And like you said, didn't he kind of save Family too? Like, didn't he kind of come in and he was responsible? He started low, but then like the writer quit or something, and they're like almost like, "Boy, you step in, step up, you're up to bat." And he was like, "Okay."
And when you
think about it, that's also very real. Family.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Of course, no, exactly. You really think that might have been what kind of paved the way. Both ABC shows, by the way, Battle of the Network Stars go ABC. Those all got the green light from ABC. Then he went on after 30-something to do My So-Called Life, which I know some of our younger than us Gen Xers maybe, that's a cult classic for a lot of people.
And that's doing the same thing with 30-something with a younger age group.
Exactly.
With high schoolers, the same thing. What are these everyday problems that they have?
And then he went on to do Once and Again, which
I love that show.
I know. Okay, and, sometimes you don't know that what you don't know.
Oh,
yes.
Is this okay? I'm confused. I get Sisters and Once and Again mixed up.
You could. I could see that.
Was Gary's wife Susanna? Did she play actual Susanna on Once and Again? On Sisters. She's on Sisters?
Susanna was on. Oh my gosh.
Who was that actress? What is her name?
So Celia Ward is the lead.
No, not
Celia Ward was in
Callumber.
Patricia Callumber was in Sisters.
Okay, and then Miles Drentel is in one of them, and I think he actually plays Miles Drentel. That's why I'm wondering if it's actually Susanna, or if it's just the actress.
That's a good question.
Okay,
We'll have to do some
we'll
fact
ask
checking.
Ed Zwick.
Okay,
but that was a good show.
Yes. excellent show. And then he did a bunch of movies, but probably the movie that put him on the map in terms of film credit, and it's probably my Gen X, what do I want to say, just my Bible movie. I wanted this life before I had Hope and Michael's life. This is the life I wanted. In 1986, I wanted to be, Demi Moore in About Last Night. That was
About Last
gold.
Night.
He is About Last Night.
My
Can you
God.
believe it? And
Yeah.
so he has a stamp on so many
Yeah.
shows that defined a particular time in my growing up. There was Family, then there was About Last Night, and then there was 30-something, and then there was Once and Again. He also did Glory, which is a great section of that book when he talks
That
about
is so
that
good,
movie and how it got made, and it's pretty powerful. And it wasn't just him. He shares in the book that a lot of the actors, as well as other directors during 30-something and some of the other writers, went on to do some pretty amazing things. Like the birth of some particular TV shows and other things happened because of 30-something. We know that Ken Ellyn goes on to become a showrunner and a director. Timothy Busfield, the great Peter Horton / Gary. Thank God he didn't die in real life, because there's so many
and
great
that's why
shows.
he had to die on the show, is because he had to go on and direct.
Yes. Just listen to this, okay? The richness of their resumes since 30-something ended. And it's really hard to imagine television without some of these shows that I'm going to tell you right now. Their work has had no, I'm not going to say that.
Wait,
So
who are we
listen-
talking about right now? Are we talking
Oh,
about
I'm
Gary
sorry.
or all of
Well, I'm talking about
All of them.
All of them.
All of them.
Okay. So
Okay.
this is
Because Melanie Mayron and Polly Draper have
Yes.
also done a lot of directing and
Yeah.
Right.
stage
So
work,
I'm gonna
too.
say-
Patricia Wedig has written plays, and
Right. So besides Ken and Timothy and Peter Horton, are Patricia, Melanie, a lot of them have gone on to do other things that were not necessarily acting. Okay.
Yeah,
And some of the
right
other
behind the
writers on the
camera.
show. Exactly. So they've gone on to be producers, directors, executive producers, showrunners. Here's a list of the shows: Alias, My So-Called Life, Friday Night Lights, Brothers and Sisters, Grey's Anatomy, Parenthood, New Amsterdam, Breaking Bad, Without a Trace, Nashville, Once and Again, Damages, Jane the Virgin, In Treatment, and This Is Us.
Unbelievable.
Can you? Yeah.
And you know,
a
I
lot of-
just watched a movie with Polly Draper that just came out. With right now Polly Draper, who is Ellyn. She plays Ellyn. It's called Shiva Baby, and I loved it. It's a super annoying movie, but super quirky. And she is the star of that movie. She is so good.
We'll have to put
Shiva
that in
yeah,
the
Baby.
show
they
notes.
all
Shiva Baby.
and,
Yeah.
and many of them also directed episodes of 30-something.
Right.
At least once. I know, Peter Horton, Ken Ellyn, Timothy Busfield. a
Patricia
good
Wedig too,
handful.
right?
Yeah, a good handful, and even Mel Harris directed one. So they all tried their hand at it, and they all, Also, let's not forget, Ed Zwick and Marshall Herskovitz were 30-something as well. They're the same age as the actors, so they all had this kind of very. This
They were the friend
relationship
group.
that wasn't like I'm the director and you guys are the actors. They all
Yeah.
were kind of on the level, and so Ed Zwick, they didn't direct every episode. Certainly, they had lots of other people come in and direct as well. But then they were very open to saying to the actors, "Sure, give it a try," which made them, like that list you just read.
Yeah.
Because they were allowed to explore on 30-something, we got such great television from it.
Yeah.
And certainly, for a show that was only on for 4 years, it had it had a tremendous amount of awards. 30-something was nominated for a total of 91 awards.
Oh my God.
63 nominations for the Primetime Emmy Awards, 28 nominations for the Golden Globes. It ultimately won 28 awards out of those nominations, 13 Emmys and two Golden Globes. Now, there was a whole host of other organizations like the Directors Guild of America, the Television Critics, blah, blah, blah. Most of the awards were won in the first 2 seasons or the first 3 seasons. However, that second look episode just kind of cleaned up too.
Yeah.
Some acting awards of note. The entire series won Outstanding Drama Series in 1988, so that would have been for season 1.
Wow.
Okay.
Timothy Busfield won in 1991 for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Drama. Patricia Wedig won 3 1988, 1990, and 1991 for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Drama. These are Emmys. And so I'm like 88, 90, and 91. Then who won in 89? And that would have been Dana Delaney for China Beach. So you can kind of see who she's up against there. Melanie Mayron won an Emmy in 1989 for Best Supporting Actress. The show won Outstanding Writing in 1988. Patricia Wettig won the Golden Globe in 1989. No, Patricia Wettig won the Golden Globe in 1990 for Best Actress in a TV Drama. And the show won the Golden Globe for Best Drama Series in 1989. So it was kind of cleaning up, you know. If it wasn't nominated, it was winning in 80 in those times. Two of the episodes, 30-something also placed in the number 19 spot on TV Guide's 50 Greatest Shows of All Time in 2002. And in 2013, TV Guide placed it as number 10 in its list of the 60 greatest dramas of all time. You guys, this is for a show that was on for 4 years. I have some really fun facts I wanted to share with you. I have a couple of fun facts that I wanted to share with you. Did you guys know that the word 30-something was added to the Oxford English Dictionary as a direct result of its popular usage from this series?
When I saw that, it triggered a memory that the word 30-something was new. Like they had made up a word and we're like, that's a cute word they made up. But would you, if somebody asked you on the street, like when did the word 30-something come, you'd think, well, it always existed. But no, they
probably,
made it up.
Yeah, probably, yeah. Okay, who do you guys think was the only actor to appear in all 85 episodes of the series?
Well, it's got to be Hope. Doesn't it have to be Hope?
Elliot.
Wrong. It's Ken Olin. He was Michael's in every episode. Michael's in every episode. Okay, I think this is really kind of a cool thing. There's a scene in the episode called Strangers showing Russell and Peter in a post-coital conversation. Now, I'm not remembering who Russell and Peter were exactly.
Yes, so Russell is a really good friend of Melissa's. Wait.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
He's played by David Marshall Grant. I think I can picture him. Yeah.
And he meets Peter, who works at the ad agency. So Melissa is coming in to do some photography work and meet Miles, and Russell comes with her, and then he is introduced to Peter, and then they go on to have a relationship. Well, I shouldn't say, and they go on to have to get to know each other, go on some dates, and they have this scene in bed together, which is, at that time, the first scene like that in television.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Yeah, so you never really see them kiss or do anything. You just see them in bed in a post-coital conversation, and it's widely believed to be the first time gay male characters were ever shown in bed together in a sexual content on American network television. And just the fact that it was implied that they had sex was enough to prompt the loss of about $1.5 million worth of advertising revenue.
Oh my God.
Because a lot of the ad companies withdrew their commercials. So ABC pulled the episode out of rerun and syndication. And so the only time it was seen again was when the show was released on DVD.
Oh my God, so is it on... It is on the DVD, so you can access it now.
Yes, I watched it on YouTube. It's on YouTube as well.
Oh yeah, okay.
But right away,
but then if you missed it, then
got it.
If you missed it, then you missed it for a while.
The first time, it's sort of like Rob and Laura sleeping in separate beds.
And it's like it didn't show them doing anything. It didn't show. They were just laying in bed, like talking. Yeah. So Timothy Busfield, who longtime listeners know, he's a friend of ours. We like to call him Timmy. God, I got the biggest hug from Timothy Busfield in Chicago that time, and I don't know if you guys remember. It was like 2022. We had gone to see Melissa in this play, and she had asked. It was right after we had interviewed her on the podcast. So she's like, stick around after so I can say hi. And then she's like, oh, Timmy's in that car behind you. And we're like, what? I feel like the Omicron variant had just resurfaced. So everybody's wearing masks. Like Melissa Gilbert was like, I wish I could hug you, but I'm in this play and I have to wear this mask. And nope, Timothy Busfield gets out of the SUV, no mask, runs around the car, hugs me so hard, gives Brian, shakes his hand with that big bro hug, hugs my daughter, talk for a long time, gets back in, and we were all very, very aware of Purell and masks, and especially right then. We walked down the street, Brian, because, like I told you, I had made him watch, not made him, he liked it, but, the last 3 seasons of 30-something for sure. He's just holding his hand in front of him, and he's just like, if I get COVID from Elliot, that's like the coolest story I've ever had to tell in my life. And we get in the car, and I'm like, you want Purell? And he's like, hell no. Like, I want to get COVID from Elliot. Well, Timmy was actually just 29 when he was cast in the pilot. He grew that beard so he would look old enough to play the part of a 30-something.
My God. Wow. And now I think about seeing him in things when he's younger, and you can see his unbearded face.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
On TV
he was
shows
in Family
and stuff.
Ties. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was in Family Ties for a
But
while.
has he ever not had a beard since?
I don't think so.
I can't
maybe
picture
for a
him
role,
without
maybe,
one.
but-
I mean, maybe,
I can't
but
either.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Michael Stedman, the character, not Ken Olin, Michael Stedman was ranked number 46 in TV Guide's list of the 50 greatest TV dads of all time.
Oh.
Really?
Okay, that was,
I'm a little bit like, okay.
That was sexy time. I think for us as, 20-year-old women, to see a beautiful man fathering in a tender way like that, it just makes your ovaries kind of hurt. And I think that spoke, even if you weren't making, even if you weren't aiming for that kind of life, that was something that was really sexy to observe.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Michael and Hope are probably the number one reason I had, my first daughter at age 26, because I was still like, okay, we got married. Now we're supposed to have a daughter.
That's right.
Yeah. And her
name's Janie. I did like that name, but no.
So this whole week, this conversation has been like therapy for me. I'm digging into my psyche and the things I wanted when I was growing up. And like, we're talking about growing up for real, not growing up like I want to be a horse girl when I grow up. Like, who do I want to be? So it may not have resonated with people who weren't grappling with what they wanted when they grew up. Like my husband. And that's okay. That's okay. But I can't emphasize enough how revisiting this show is like turning over a stone and revealing my brain at a moment in time, examining your hopes and dreams and fears when you're kind of on the verge of choosing a path toward one of them. And if this was you, if you were like me, I highly recommend finding these episodes on YouTube and rewatching. If it's not you, do not do this because it won't mean anything to you. It might look like a lot of people standing around complaining, which is why some people say it was the precursor to Seinfeld. And some people even say it's the precursor to Friends. But for the three of us in this room, our time is up for today, ladies, and you can pay the receptionist on your way out. But wait. There's more. In a final twist of fate that could only happen on the Pop Culture Preservation Society, we will book another session for next week where we will have a guest therapist. You guys, I can barely even say it out loud. Hope. It's Hope. I'm not even kidding. It's Hope. Mel Harris, the actor who played Hope Stedman, is going to be our guest on our episode next week, giving us the inside scoop on this generational drama, which was not even our generation, but somehow spoke to our generation. Hope is going to be here next week.
You guys, 19-year-old Michelle is dead. Like, she is on the floor. I'm looking at her on the floor right now. Her ponytail's all askew. That's her scrunchie's in.
Her scrunchie.
Y'all, I don't know. This is the biggest to me. And I have to do this now because I cannot do this next week. So I'm doing it now.
Yes, do it now. Get it
Y'all,
out. Get it out.
This is my Sean Cassidy guest. This is
Yeah.
the biggest guest
Yes.
to me.
You've been saying this since the beginning of the
19-year-old
podcast.
Michelle and 56-year-old Michelle. This is my biggest get yet. I am going to be so chill next week. But from now until then, I am losing my flipping mind. I've written a letter to in my journal. I've written a letter to my 19-year-old self because
I love that.
I mean, you guys, what? The what? I mean, I just remember 2 years ago I posted a picture. on my Instagram of all my little 30 because she was talking about the reboot, and I posted a picture of, like, it's a picture of me and Brian next to pictures of Hope and Michael and then the cast, and I said something cute about how much that show meant to me, and I think I tagged her in it, and she liked it, and I thought that was going to do me in. Like, I was screenshotting that. I was sending it to people that are just mere acquaintances. Like, look what just happened. I was going to put it on my Christmas card. And now I've been emailing Mel Harris for the past 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And she's like,
No
looking
degrees.
forward to it. Have fun.
No degrees of separation.
Looking forward to it. Yeah. She's like, can't wait. And I'm like, trying to be so chill. Like, okay, yeah, me neither. Yeah, it'll be great.
And I'm going to have that moment that I've talked about with both of you guys when I love watching you have your moment. And yeah, it came in handy that you had that nice little bulletin board photo so you could post it and she saw it. And
that was years ago. That had nothing to do with this. I don't think she knows I'm the same person. We're not going to bring up the bulletin board, by the way.
Maybe we'll keep that one to ourselves.
We keep that on the DL, guys. But
wouldn't it be funny for you to hold it up while she was on the screen and in real time?
No. We're not crossing that line next week.
Yeah.
That's why, everyone, I'm getting it out right now. Right. I promise y'all I'm going to be chill. I am. I'm going to be chill.
Yeah.
There might be a substance involved to get me that way. I live in Colorado. Just saying.
Whatever it takes.
You guys are like, whatever it takes, Michelle, for you not to pull out the bulletin board.
And Michelle, Kristen and I promise we won't have our own little group, our own little text without you included for this.
Shut her down.
Oh my gosh.
We're so happy.
Well, anyway, this was the end of our episode. So we do appreciate you guys being excited with us. And I know a lot of you all listening out there loved the show like we did. And I know that you guys also feel like you're our friends, and we feel the same way. And so we feel your excitement for us. And so thank you already. Thank you for the wishes that Michelle keeps it under control. And we love all of you. We do. But we have a big bunch of folks who take their support of our podcast to the next level over on Patreon, where they pledge a little bit of their allowance monthly to help us keep this podcast and social media society and all that we do afloat. And we like to thank them with goodies like exclusive extras, and we mail them some goodies, and we have Zoom events sometimes. And the very least we can do is to thank a group of them by name right here every week. Today we're giving a shout out to Mary Beth, Kim, Lisa, Donovan, MP, Mike, Sandy, Alice, Elisa, Miriam, Linda, and Diane.
In the meantime, let's raise our glasses for a toast to Hope and Michael, Elliot and Nancy, Gary and Melissa and Ellyn, all courtesy of the cast of Three's Company. 2 good times.
2 happy days.
To Little House on the Prairie.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Hello world is a song that we're singing. Come on, get happy. A whole lot of love.